Well, good afternoon. I'm Governor John Hickenlooper, the chair of the NGA's Economic Development and Commerce Committee. It's my pleasure to host today's closing plenary session. I want to thank all the governors for joining us, making time on your agenda, and this is, I think, going to be an exciting session. So let's get started. States continue to be the incubators of innovation and innovative policy, and no place is that more true than policies that states are pursuing to prepare for the nation's transportation networks. As new and innovative technologies truly revolutionize this sector, and as we see change occurring at an amazing rate, governors are reshaping how states consider infrastructure investments. This afternoon, we're going to examine the challenges and opportunities for states as innovative technology becomes an integral part of our nation's infrastructure. And I'm hoping that this conversation is going to provide a chance to examine policy solutions spurring the safe transition and implementation of new technologies into our roadways and share successes I know that many of you have already had. In Colorado, with regard to autonomous vehicles, we've been really working hard to seek a better balance with the promotion of innovation and protecting public safety. With our Department of Transportation, our CDOT, the State Patrol cooperated with Otto. Otto was the first fully successful autonomous beer delivery in the nation, appropriately in Colorado. Just another reason why Colorado is a great place to live. We're also working towards smart infrastructure to communicate with fully automated vehicles driving on Colorado roads. We call it Project Smart 25, using smart ramp meters to help the system operate at peak efficiency. It's been used already successfully in Australia to increase capacity. So U.S. is having this introduced now, and I think we're seeing early success in our state. These are just a few of the things we're doing. I know many of you, we're going to hear in the discussions of the things that you're working on. But first I'm going to turn it over to Governor Ducey, who I have the pleasure of serving with with an EDC leadership this year. Governor Ducey, I look forward to hearing about the great work your administration is doing as well to spur innovative infrastructure investments.
Thank you, Governor Hickenlooper. It's great to be with you here today, and Secretary Chao, we're all thrilled that you're able to join us. I'm going to revise and condense my remarks so that we can have the maximum amount of time with you, and I know so many governors here have questions around infrastructure and the opportunities there. In Arizona, we're embracing the innovation that exists around transportation and infrastructure, and we look at these as opportunities in transportation, in water, and in telecommunications, and we're doing our best to lay the groundwork for a bright future in all of those categories. In Arizona especially, water is of incredible concern. We've built the 5th largest metropolitan area in the middle of a desert, and it's because we have been very good with water, and with the 16-year drought, although thank goodness it's been an incredibly wet winter, and I hope that it continues. We continue to look for ways to conserve and augment our water supply. We are proud that in Arizona today, we use less water than we did in 1957. And our economy has grown 19 times since then, and 6 times in terms of population. So it's something that we have planned for, and something that we think about every day, and that's something that really outlasts the term of any elected official. I can tell that water is not as great a concern in other parts of the country by the water pressure in the hotel rooms. We also want you to know that Uber and Lyft are 2 organizations and a technology in terms of a ride-sharing app that we've embraced in Arizona. We like to think of ourselves as the Kitty Hawk for driverless technology. Not only do we have Uber testing in Arizona, we also have GM and Google through a enterprise called Waymo, and I've had the opportunity in the last 60 days to drive in 3 autonomous vehicles from 3 different companies, and this is a technology, I can tell you, that it's on its way, and will be here soon, and something that will affect all of our states in terms of how we're going to handle it. I think in Arizona, we've been fortunate because we've been focused on regulation and safety, but not an overly aggressive regulation. We were able to put $86 million additional dollars into our transportation budget last year on some focused projects, but transportation funding is something that I think is a question that all the governors have as to what federal spending is going to look like in the next 4 years. On telecommunications, we're trying to pave the way for 5G technology that will give us significantly faster download speeds and to bring this infrastructure out to our rural areas. One other thing I want to talk on in Arizona that I think is something we likely are seeing all across the country, and the sharing economy bills, the Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, are something that's been topical in Arizona, with city and local governments having a lot of power to regulate industries. We've gone out of our way in Arizona to make sure that we're as welcoming as possible, both from a state and local perspective. We put a bill out that states that governments are not allowed to regulate a new industry as if it were an existing industry without explicit legislative authority to do that. And I'll give you one quick example. When I first came into office, the Super Bowl was going to be held in Arizona in the first month. And we heard from our director of weights and measures that his plan was to sting Uber during the Super Bowl and shut them down with the regulations that had been written decades ago for taxi cabs. We quickly got a new director of weights and measures, and we lifted those regulations. We don't want to see the heavy hand of government being used in an overly aggressive way to stop these new innovative ideas that will provide such conveniences for our citizens. That, along with P3, are things we're focused on in the state of Arizona, and I'm excited to hear from the Secretary.
Great. Thank you, Governor Ducey. And I'm going to do a brief introduction, and this could well be 20 pages long. And I first met our new Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation, Elaine Chao, when I was a mayor of Denver, and she was the Secretary of Labor. And they were doing some of the most innovative work in labor, certainly I think that had ever been done at that time, and we worked together on 2 different projects. And her staff really was a treat, and we're going to have a great partner, I think. Secretary Chao has as long and distinguished a career in public service and the private sector and the nonprofit sector as just about anybody I know. Prior to serving as the Department of Transportation, Secretary Chao served as the U.S. Secretary of Labor from 2001 to 2009, where she focused on increasing the competitiveness of America's workforce in the global economy, but also piloting competitive programs and grants to really get states to kind of compete and try to create innovation on their own. Secretary Chao's extensive public service record also includes positions, and this is a remarkably broad array of a career. CEO of the United Way of America, or of United Way America, the Director of the Peace Corps, Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation, Chairman of the Federal Maritime Commission, Deputy Maritime Administrator, and White House Fellow, specializing in transportation and trade. While not dedicating her time to public sector, Secretary Chao has worked as Vice President of Syndications at Bank of America and been a transportation banker at Citicorp. So we are, I think, all looking forward to hearing from Secretary Chao about the direction of the Department of Transportation in the coming years, and hopefully we can have a vigorous dialogue here. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Secretary Chao, who was sworn in just 3 weeks ago.
Thank you very much, Governor. I have to say, Governor, when you were running through my resume, I was thinking to myself, these people are going to think I can't hold a job. Governor Ducey, thank you very much also, and thank you to all of you for inviting me to discuss innovation and infrastructure with you. We really appreciate the opportunity. but I have to also give a big shout out to my home state governor, Governor Matt Bevin from Kentucky. The new automated technologies, have the potential of dramatically changing commercial transportation and private travel, expanding access for millions within our borders. The private sector is driving these innovations, working with cities and states like yourselves. But in addition to the commercial applications, automated technologies can also help expand access to transportation for underserved populations, especially the elderly and the disabled. I know that Governor Hickenlooper and also Governor Ducey have ridden in automated vehicles, and they have really been leaders in automated technologies, and we want to thank both of you for your interest and for your leadership. Over 35,000 people perished in traffic crashes in 2005. This is a 7% increase over the previous year. Research shows that 94% of fatalities are due to human error, fatalities and crashes. So automated technology has the potential to help eliminate human error and reduce crashes and fatalities significantly. So there's a lot at stake in getting this technology right. To promote research and development, the department has so far approved 10 applications for automated vehicle proving grounds. Drones are another exciting emerging technology. As you know, companies are testing numerous commercial applications for drones. UPS, for example, is testing a delivery drone in Florida, for example. But drones also play a very important role in safeguarding our infrastructure. Rail lines already use them for safety checks on equipment and tracks. They also have been used in emergency response in the United States for more than a decade. In Kentucky, firefighters are using drones with thermal cameras to fight fires, locate the lost, or help in disaster recovery efforts. Drones can also be used to inspect pipelines for leaks, protect first responders in accidents involving derailments and hazardous materials, and also help save lives in many other emergency situations. In September of last year, NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, issued a federal automated vehicles policy. This is a set of guidelines, not a set of rules, and this administration is evaluating this guidance and will consult with you and other stakeholders as we update it and amend it to assure and ensure that it strikes the right balance. We will also be asking for your input as the FAA develops standards and regulations to ensure that drones can be safely integrated into our country's airspace. We want very much to work with you and other stakeholders to ensure that the federal government is a catalyst for a safe, effective technologies, not an impediment. America is a beacon throughout the world because of our innovation, our creativity, and our forward-looking manner, which is so much a part of what America is all about. So I want to work with all of you in all of your states on emerging technologies, but I also want to issue a challenge to Silicon Valley, Detroit, and all other auto industry hubs to step up and help educate a skeptical public about the benefits of automated technologies. One of the biggest obstacles to deploying this technology is consumer acceptance. And as regulators and as public policy makers, we need to work together to educate and address legitimate public concerns about safety and privacy. So once again, let me conclude that I look forward to working with all of you. The future is so full of promise, and we've got to use every tool available to modernize our infrastructure so that our country's economy will remain competitive, grow, and produce good-paying jobs for America's families. I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
I'll open it up for questions from the governors. There's bright light everywhere. You know, I have one question, and I think that there certainly has been, at least in Colorado and I think around the country, a lot of skepticism about autonomous vehicles, cars and trucks. And as you just described, the human error involved in accidents and fatalities, 94%, is astonishing. But still, how can we confront that skepticism? And then also, when we have autonomous vehicles and accidents do happen where the technology breaks, how do we make sure that that doesn't, we're not, the skepticism increases, even though overall we're going to be saving lives?
I've tried to address those issues in my opening remarks by saying that technology can do so much to improve the competitiveness of our country, to improve the quality of life for our residents and citizens. But there is great angst and anxiety on the part of many people about emerging technologies, how they work, what they really mean, what it means for privacy. And so I think this is a wonderful forum through each of your states as well, that we all take a collective effort to recognize, number one, those very legitimate concerns and begin to talk about them, raise them up so that we have a national consensus and how to proceed with some of these regulations that we are all entrusted with implementing and promulgating.
Great.
There's one over there.
Governor Haslam, Tennessee.
Yeah, thank you, Secretary. Thanks for joining us. And there's obviously been a lot of talk and a lot of anticipation around an infrastructure plan out of the administration, and realize we're still a little on the preliminary side of that, but any insight you would have for this group on the infrastructure plan to come out of the administration?
The administration is just getting started, so we are we are in discussion about various infrastructure plans. We are open and welcome ideas, and I know that tomorrow the President will be speaking with you, and he will be looking forward to discussing with you your ideas about infrastructure. This is a pivotal time for our country. This is a transformational time. There's no better time in my recent memory than now for the recognition that the infrastructure of our country is critical, and I believe that the many stakeholders that are involved in a critical infrastructure plan are in place. There seems to be bipartisan support for addressing the infrastructure needs of our country. So if not now, when? And I believe the time is now, and you'll have a great discussion with the President tomorrow.
Governor Wolf from Pennsylvania.
Madam Secretary, welcome. I'd just like to say to the two guys on either side of you, there's a lot of autonomous vehicle research being done in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
Yes.
with Uber and Google, and now Ford has made a big investment in Pittsburgh. So,
Thank you for your
each are-
support.
Yeah, just want
I've
to point
actually
that-
been to Pittsburgh.
Well,
and,
I know. Well, that's great. I'd love to have you back. I'd just like to ask on the infrastructure. This is a time, I think, when there's a lot of focus on what we haven't done over the past years, and I think the administration's focus on infrastructure is important because we have a lot of catching up to do, and by some estimates, $4 trillion nationally. But it's also, it seems to me, a good time to do a reset on infrastructure. So you're talking about autonomous vehicles, but there are other things that other nations have done in infrastructure, like high-speed rail, like pipelines, things that while not completely autonomous, actually help our transportation system in ways that the old-fashioned roads and bridges don't. So how should we be approaching, Pennsylvania is the keystone state, with a lot of east-west traffic already. There seems to be a lot of opportunity for infrastructure investment that could help the whole country. How should we as a Commonwealth proceed to help maybe think more broadly about this?
You are exactly right. I should have mentioned high-speed rail. In fact, we have a number of very impressive high-speed rail projects throughout the country. Most recently, I received a visit from people who are involved in the Dallas-Houston high-speed rail. There's also a very important high-speed rail with the governor of other states as well. So I think that high-speed rail is part of the thinking of the future transportation system of our country. This is not to say that there are without problems. Eminent domain is a huge issue with any of these high-speed rail projects. And we also have desires to make certain parts of existing infrastructure, rail infrastructure, high-speed rail, that is more difficult, primarily because high-speed rail needs a straightaway to be able to gain the speed necessary to qualify it for high-speed rail. So there's been a lot of talk in recent years about Amtrak and how do we increase the speed without sacrificing safety, of course, in the Northeast Corridor. I think these are very valuable and very legitimate concerns, and we should be just addressing them. They may not be currently applicable, but as we talk about a future infrastructure project and a future infrastructure for our country, I think there should be consideration. There needs to be consideration of different kinds of travel alternatives for commercial and passenger use, and technology will enable us to achieve a futuristic look, but that's much, much more in the future. We're thinking about short-term infrastructure needs, we're thinking about medium-term infrastructure needs, and ultimately longer-term. The president is very futuristic looking. He's thinking about a transportation system, an infrastructure system that includes not only transportation, but other aspects of a critical infrastructure that will make us more competitive internationally. You'll hear more about that from him tomorrow. So there will be other aspects, but all of these issues, I think, are exciting, they're interesting, but they also present challenges. And if we are to be futuristic and looking toward the future, we need to discuss them in a way that may not yield consensus right now, but we need to be talking about them. And you in your various states have the excellent opportunity to start some projects on a trial basis and see whether they work or not. And the purpose of a meeting like this is to study best practices, where we learn from you learn from one another, and there's a lot of valuable information to be shared.
Great. I've got Governor Raimundo, Snyder, Baker, and then Bevan. Governor Raimundo from Rhode Island.
Yes, nice
Thank
to see
you,
you again,
Secretary.
Governor.
Nice to see you again, and thank you for joining us. Nice to have another woman around this table. So first a comment and then a question. I agree with you that much of the concern or trepidation as it relates to autonomous vehicles comes from consumer, either misunderstanding or lack of information. Although I'll also say, I think we have some work to do with our public safety departments. I know in conversations with my state police force who, patrol our roads, there's a lot of question coming from them as well. How will this work? And so to the extent that you could, work with us as we go through this process to really integrate public safety in the discussion of autonomous vehicles, I think there's a lot of work to do, and I would welcome any guidance and advice on that. Secondly, I wondered if you could offer us any guidance around the administration's view and your view of the role of user fees as a source of revenue for transportation projects. In Rhode Island last year, I worked with the legislature to pass a multi-billion-dollar transportation package, and I was totally opposed to increasing the gas tax. We already have a high gas tax. So we, as a component of our plan, instituted a user fee on large trucks, a toll for 18-wheelers and above. And I'm curious to know where in your plan and the administration's planning user fees comes into play as an alternative to raising taxes, and in particular with passenger fees at airports, because we all know our airports need to be rebuilt. Thank you.
Everybody wants a better transportation system, but very few people want to pay for it. So that's the big conundrum. There are a number of pay-fors for improving our very critical infrastructure, and the pay-fors are going to be hard. The pay-fors are going to tread on, if we want to come together and find some way, the pay-fors will not be unanimous. Some people in one part of the political spectrum will like some leaders on the other part will not like it and propose their own. which the other, so there will be a lot of discussion about pay-fors, and that's going to be a tremendous challenge. And I think if we all decide that there are things that we think are very important, we all need to come to a national consensus about how to do that. But the pay-fors are very difficult.
Great. Governor Snyder, from the great state of Michigan.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being with us, Madam Secretary. It's exciting, and I'm excited to accept your challenge as a partnership opportunity because we've been doing a lot of great things with the Department of Transportation on this topic already, given that Michigan's the world center of the auto industry and the emerging world center of the mobility industry. And I want to thank you for your partnership. We've been doing a project for several years now doing vehicle-to-infrastructure communication with traditional vehicle, and we have over 3,000 vehicles on the road. Thanks to a partnership with your department, we're implementing smart highways, putting infrastructure sensors in and communication systems that haven't been seen before. And also thank you for being one of the 10 proving grounds. We already had M-City, the best proving ground in the country. We're creating the American Center for Mobility, which will be the world's best. So these are great opportunities, but you're right, we need to get more education to our consumers. One of the things we did this last year at the North American International Auto Show, we did it during Industry Week, but we created Mobility. Because of Detroit's comeback, we highlighted that, and we had over 200 startup companies taking the entire lower level of Cobo Hall, and it was fabulous to see the innovation, and we want to expand that to the consumer experience so people can see this wonderful, exciting technology and how it's this convergence going on all around the world. And I think that really opens up people's eyes to how great this is. And the same thing with opportunities to give people more exposure to seeing how wonderful they can try these vehicles, they can get in them, they can have real life experiences. So I look forward to that partnership. The other thing I would really like to partner with you on, we're already starting initiatives to deal with the insurance industry issues, the other regulatory issues, the healthcare issues, and also the retraining issues. What this could do for truck drivers and other issues. Actually, we need to be looking farther out as to what are career opportunities as we see these autonomous vehicles emerge. How do we make sure we're planning far enough ahead so we don't create job loss opportunities for people, but we do this in a smart way. So thank you for your leadership on this, and I'm fired up to work on this topic.
Thank you for your comments.
Going to go to Governor Baker, and then we have Governor Bevin, Burgum, and Hutchinson. Governor Baker from the great state of Massachusetts.
Thank you
Governor,
very
nice
much,
seeing you
Governor Hickenlooper. Secretary, just two quick thoughts on the autonomous vehicle issue. The first is, we have a number of companies that have located in Massachusetts to work on this, and what's been particularly interesting about it is I thought they were doing it because we have a whole bunch of really smart people who know a lot about technology. It actually turns out they're locating in Massachusetts because our winters are horrible and our roads suck. And they've basically said to us, if we can figure out how to move autonomous vehicles safely around the Commonwealth of Mass and the city of Boston, we can do it anywhere on planet Earth. So. The second thing is, we've also had a lot of conversations with folks in the Department of Defense about this. There's a huge interest, at least I think there's a huge interest there, in how autonomous vehicles and autonomous flight devices, all the way up to airplanes, and maybe even fighter jets, may end up being autonomously driven at some point. I'm just curious to know, when you think about the safety questions, is there a big role here for the Department of Defense in terms of knocking down some of the barriers on that? And then Governor Snyder brought up my second question, which I can't urge you enough, and we would love to work with you on this one. The autonomous vehicles have tremendous opportunity, but at the same time, there's some big-time workforce issues associated with that. And I really think it's important for us as a country to be thinking far enough ahead on that one that we don't end up creating just a tremendous amount of economic hardship along the way there.
To answer your two questions, first of all, in the Department of Defense, the Army Corps of Engineers has a huge role to play in this whole infrastructure discussion that we are having. I don't need to elaborate more on that. Number two, on the issue about technology displacement, as the former Secretary of Labor, I'm very, very concerned about that and very cognizant of those challenges. So we do have to transition people, and we need to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, and then we're going to try and keep these questions, so we're going to run out of time here. And I think we're going to save Governor Bevin for last, whether you like it or not, but you're from Kentucky.
It's all right. I do know this woman, and
No, Governor Burgum from the great state of North Dakota.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Really refreshing to hear all your talk about technology on the front end of this. One of the implications of automated technology in vehicles is going to change how we think about infrastructure, because we've got a culture in America that's been built for the last 70 years around automobiles, and with automobiles comes parking. There's one estimate that the dollar value of parking in America on an aggregate basis is larger than the dollar value of all the vehicles. And you say, how is that possible? It's possible because the average city has got somewhere between 10 and 12 parking spots for every automobile. But when along comes the sharing economy, we're not going to have that need. And so one of the things that I'm worried about is if we're going to go out and spend $1 trillion on infrastructure, that we go build that infrastructure around yesterday's transportation models as opposed to tomorrow's, because we're going to just have all this cost and maintenance cost that's going to be a burden on taxpayers in the end. So we have to think about that. So I have one of the asks that I have on that is on the flexibility. We've been asking for states for a lot of flexibility on healthcare. In transportation dollars, it often comes 80% federal, 10% state, 10% local when those dollars come into a DOT project. How about 100% local control? Because I know that those cities wouldn't spend the money the way the federal government would have asked them to, because the guidelines are built around how do we move more cars faster, and moving more cars faster often has a detrimental impact on local sales tax, local property values, and ruins the local tax base, and it spreads our cities out. And if we want small, efficient government and efficient use of taxpayer dollars, we have to have small, efficient footprints in our cities, even in our rural areas. And so that's one thing to think about.
Great.
If we could ask
Can you type, because I got like 3 minutes to get two more
Okay, my
questions
last
in.
one is in agriculture. Today in North Dakota, autonomous vehicles everywhere in agriculture. If you're writing the rules, make sure there's exclusion for off-road, because keep our farmers being productive and all the interesting things they're doing with automated innovation.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Great. Governor Hutchinson from the great state of Arkansas.
Governor?
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thanks for joining us. Just a quick comment. I agree that the state matching formula with the federal government, the federal highway money, please continue to rely upon the states to set priorities in highway construction. That is very important to us. And there's been some debate, because you asked for infrastructure list, that somehow these decisions are made at the national level. Might be some priorities, but the states need to set the priority in terms of highways in our area. Secondly, just remember that it's about the other projects, as you know, and you mentioned the Corps of Engineers. If we just simply channeled, and it's been an approved project by the Corps of Engineers, deepen the channel for the Arkansas River from 9 feet to 12 feet, it expands commerce, and it gives us great opportunity, but it's been a core project that's been idle for some time. So broader range of topics there, but we appreciate your support for the role of the states.
Thank you.
Great. And now, Governor Bevin, the most patient governor in the room, Governor Bevin from the great
quite
state
all
of
right.
Kentucky.
Secretary Chao, thank you for being here. Thank you for your gracious comments, but also thank you for your long service to this nation and your willingness to step back up again on this front. A quick question, it's one that's pressing to us. You mentioned both short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals and visions for transportation. One of the short-term ones is that many goods are, in fact, still moving about on the existing infrastructure, and it is aging, and even where it is structurally sound, it's becoming functionally obsolete. A good example, you know, bridges northern Kentucky with Cincinnati, the Brent Spence Bridge corridor. And there is a need where 4% of the nation's GDP rolls over this. It's outdated, it's 50-some years old now. It needs to be addressed. It's one example of others that exist around the nation. So what would you tell us as governors who have pieces of key infrastructure like that that must be updated in the short term? What kind of expectation should we have from your administration, from this administration and your cabinet, for interface? Because the old days of expecting the federal government to just build a new bridge, those days are gone. And it's going to require collaboration, I would think, from a state like ourselves in Ohio and the federal government. And as we think about these short-term immediate needs, how best can we, any of us, work with your cabinet and what advice would you give us as to how to move forward on shovel-ready type projects?
I am not surprised that Governor Bevin from Kentucky will mention the Brent Spence Bridge. But it is emblematic of so much of the deteriorating infrastructure. And as we come into office, we hope to find new ways to innovate, to find additional resources, but also some of the existing infrastructure of which you have talked with the previous administration on, some of the answers will remain the same as well. But as we go forward, we do look forward to, for example, public-private partnerships. That is not the answer for everything, because there is a cost to that. And there is consumer lack of acceptance for toll roads, for example, in certain areas. So I think all of us have a responsibility to take a look at all the pay-fors, and none of them are attractive, and find new innovative ways to supplement, augment that which is available, and in so doing, educate the public, because I think we as public policymakers can only go so far. And if our population, if our states are not with us, we are limited in what we can do. And the same thing is at the national level. I can only go so far, or as far as you will allow me. So I would depend on you in finding acceptance within your states on the ways to go forward as well. And again, I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Secretary Chao, what a great foundation to start with. And I think we all, I can speak for everybody here, that we look forward optimistically to building upon that foundation. And your vision of a transportation future is one I think that every one of us share. And we would love to be active partners with you and make sure together we get it done.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today.
We got to do quick, so we leave, or I got to give him a plaque.
Okay. So you want to do that now, or you want me to?
Finish up what you're doing. Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll go to the second panel. And again, Secretary Chao, thank you again so much. The second panel joining us is Regina Hopper, President and CEO of ITS America, and Jamie Adams, who's the Director of Autonomous Systems at Lockheed Martin. Regina was named President and CEO of ITS America in May 2015. Prior to joining ITS America, she served as President and CEO of America's Natural Gas Alliance, ANGA. I think many of us got to know her. And then before that, Vice President of U.S. Telecom, and then Vice President of the American Trucking Association before that. Before her work in industry associations, Regina was a correspondent for CBS News, where she covered the White House and anchored the network's overnight broadcast. At ITS America, Regina is working to advance the research and deployment of intelligent transportation systems in order to build a safer, smarter, and more efficient transportation network. And then next, after Regina, we have Jamie Adams, who's the Director of Autonomous Systems at Lockheed Martin in Littleton, Colorado, hometown boy. As the head of Lockheed Martin's Autonomous Systems Group, Jamie focuses on strategic research and development to support Lockheed's deployment of autonomous technology across air, land, sea, and space. Prior to joining Lockheed Martin, Jamie had a distinguished career at NASA, where he served as the Associate Division Chief of NASA's Software, Robotics, Simulation, and Engineering Division, and at Boeing, where he was able to join the International Space Station program. At Lockheed Martin, Jamie is now tasked with developing unmanned, airborne, and ground systems, as well as designing the intelligence systems that will manage them. We look forward to hearing how these technologies will impact our infrastructure network. Regina and Jamie, thank you both for joining us today. Regina, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Governor Hickenlooper. Thank you, Governor Ducey. All of the remaining governors who are here, thank you so much. And to Secretary Chao, thank you so much as well. We at ITS America are somewhat unique in that we were created, chartered from the federal government as a congressional chartered committee to work with DOT to advance intelligent transformation and transformational technologies 26 years ago. So here we are today, and someone said to me a few moments ago, what is it like to be in intelligent transportation? I said, it's like having the spotlight on you. right? Because everything today is really about transportation and the transformation. So Governor McAuliffe, we know you have worked very, very hard in the area of cybersecurity, and this will be one of the most important issues that we have to address in moving these issues forward. We really are in a whirlwind of innovation right now when it comes to advances in cloud computing, automation, robotics, and artificial intelligence, which is something that you will see highlighted here in just a moment. We have on our board for you governors, just about every single one of your state DOT CEOs is on our board of directors or working directly with us to advance these transportation technologies in a way to where we avoid a patchwork of legislative and policy regulation across the United States, and also in cooperation with the federal government. So this is really about not only just overlaying our current technology, our current infrastructure with new technology, but also integrating into our systems this technology. Secretary Chao mentioned some figures from 2014, but let me tell you about 2015. 40,200 people died on our roads in the United States in 2015. It was a 14% increase in 2 years. While the governor of Michigan, I know, is not here at this particular moment, his head of DOT, Kirk Steidle, said to a group at CES this year, so how many is okay? How many fatalities is okay? 12? 15? 100? And a young woman who was sitting in the back of the room working in technology but was not working in transportation said, I'm sorry, but I think the answer is 0. 0 should be our goal. So that is what we are trying to move toward. And you see on the board here, intelligent transformational transportation systems can do a lot of things, but it can promote safety. Next slide, please. Why is this so important? Because it really pulls everything together. Mobility is equity for all of our systems. Security and privacy do go together. Sustainability, no matter which side of the aisle you may come from, for our environment is important. And accessibility for our seniors, for the disabled, and for our youth is critical. Next slide. Technology has and will continue to change everything. We've talked a lot here already about smart vehicles, whether they be connected vehicles to vehicles, connected vehicles to the infrastructure, or automated vehicles, and then moving from ground transportation into air transportation. Our shared economy, many of the governors have already talked about Uber and Lyft, and the new business models that are adapting themselves into that confluence through the Internet of Things as it moves into our smart cities and our smart communities. Next slide. So what we did is we sat down with all of your DOT heads, with research facilities from across the United States, and with the private industry. And we said, how can we develop a public policy infrastructure that will allow us to deploy, will allow us to remove the roadblocks to deployment, and also to, yes, deal with these critical infrastructure financing issues that lay before us. We went out to our membership and totaled about 90 projects that's happening across your particular areas. The survey really was a snapshot and the need for new long-term funding, as we all know. And we grouped those into rural mobility, urban congestion relief, improved traffic safety, national homeland security, energy efficiency, and of course, the environment. Next slide. I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is what we came up with as far as the priorities with regard to accelerating technological deployment and research. You will note there that artificial intelligence, which was not talked about in the previous panel, is very important. If you have any interest in 3D printed cars, you know that Local Motors, which is in a lot of jurisdictions, but certainly here in the Washington, D.C. area, has now worked with IBM Watson in moving together both artificial intelligence and 3D printed technology for automated vehicles. Removing the roadblocks, Secretary Chao and of course you talked about the importance of building public confidence. It is so true. And Governor Hickenlooper, I hope that you will tell everyone about your elevator analogy and how the elevator actually was able to run by itself for about 50 years, I think you told me. But no one felt comfortable in that elevator unless there was a human being moving it. And so it was only due to a labor strike that resulted in the fact that elevators became autonomous. So we know that there is a need for public confidence. And then finally, increasing infrastructure investment. Is this an easy question? No, it's a very, very difficult question. But we're trying to work with all of you and trying to find innovative models of financing. Each state is different. Urban's different than rural. Large cities are different than small communities. But we are working in a way to try to pull it all together to do a smart city and a smart communities initiative that will help drive. I come from the northwest corner of Arkansas, Governor Hutchinson, where my father was on the Arkansas Highway Commission and developed the first bridge in the state. The first tunnel in the state. And had it not been for that tunnel, these little companies like Walmart, Tyson Chicken, the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, which I'll give a plug to, would really have not developed in the way that they had developed had it not been for the infrastructure needs of that tunnel and opening up the northwest corner of Arkansas to the rest of the world. So we know that infrastructure financing is important. Every state here has done a lot, and I'm going to stop here. Colorado, Governor Hickenlooper talked about the things he had done. You can switch to the next one. Governor Ducey has done some interesting things in his state, and all of you I know have. But we want to work with each and every one of you to move the deployment and development of these systems forward. And I stand ready to take any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Regina. Jamie?
Yeah, so Regina, thank you so much. Governor, thank you. Governor Ducey, thank you for inviting Lockheed Martin to be here today. This is a very important component of what we do and where we're headed in the Lockheed Martin strategic investment is where we're going. So thank you all for having us here. I'm not going to go a lot into the details of the charts that we have here because I know we're limited on time and we really want to move forward, but there's a critical component of what we do with respect to autonomy, and autonomy is a key strategic pursuit for what we do in Lockheed Martin. So you can see this in the first chart. There's a long history of what we do and what we have invested in over the years, and there are really significant components of what we do and what we want to go do forward with respect to what we are investing in, what our strategic investments are. So 2017, we have a Tiger team that is invested in Lockheed Martin to do autonomy steering committee and autonomy investments going forward. This is a big deal for us. So there's a lot of strategic investment, a lot of corporate involvement relative to what we're going to go do. I see in the chart at the right, and I kind of threw that in there as a, this is not something that's new for what we do and what we invest in as states and what we invest in as a federal government and across the whole spectrum of investment. And so you can see back to the left there and all the way to the right, we have a lot of things that we do in autonomy and autonomy investment, roadmaps, strategic investments relative to what we need to go off and pursue. The biggest point that I would take away from this chart is that we need to really think about, we need to consider as a agency, as a government contractor, and as our states, how we invest and how we go forward with respect to our investments into the autonomous architectures, our autonomy investments, and partnerships as we go forward. So let's go through the charts here really quick. Next chart. So couple of charts. So I like to do videos, right? So videos are, you know, talking less and actually showing videos are more important. So on the left side of this chart, you see that we have a significant investment in Lockheed Martin with respect to our autonomous vehicles in the military aspects. The middle chart shows the SMSS program, which is basically almost the size of a golf cart sort of product that follows this person, does route planning, does replanning and incorporation into what is going on with the respect. And then the far right, we get the, I'd come up on to Jersey barriers, road obstacles, et cetera. These are some of those very specific things that we're going to have to deal with as we go forward into the technologies and our investments in technology. So I don't want to focus on the bullets that are in here, but moreover, there's a tremendous amount of investment and tremendous amount of capabilities that we deal with in the world that we work in my group, in autonomous systems in Littleton, Colorado. So go ahead, next chart. So commercial vehicle partnerships. So we have several that we've been working with. We work with the mining industry, and the work that we're doing. We work with the rail yard industries. So we go across the domains of all of the applications for transportation systems. So it's very important, and I think it's important to this group, that what we do is vitally important to not only the infrastructure and some of the conversations we've had over the last few days relative to what's important for us and what's important to Lockheed Martin with respect to our investments, but moreover, what's important to the solving the problem of transportation and innovation, which are very many of the things that we are going to go deal with. So I've got this chart up here. These are a few of the folks that we are dealing with in our commercial vehicle partnerships. The bottom line there is that we are dealing with, and we have created a partnership with Ford. So they have a very aggressive approach to getting their vehicles on the roads and getting to full autonomous capabilities between 2018 and 2021. These are vitally important to the group that we support.
Jamie, if you can kind of wrap up, I want to make sure we have time for at least one or two questions.
Yeah. So go. I'm sorry. I said it would go fast, right? So safety is of vital importance to what we do. So working to standards, and Regina and I were talking about on the side about making sure that we work standards and that we understand standards from a state and federal perspective of how we go about making sure that we can trust these systems to work on our roads. And lastly, the thing I wanted to really impart upon the group is we have a lot of partnerships relative to what we're doing in Lockheed Martin, and so these are here. So.
Awesome. Thank you both. And we have time for about two questions. Yes.
Thank you both for the good presentation. I completely agree. This is an exciting time with autonomous vehicles. I remember when cruise control came out, and I was talking to my grandfather about it, he told me this wonderful joke about the first autonomous airplane, and everybody got on, the door closed, and said, "Welcome to the first autonomous airplane. Nothing can go wrong, nothing can go wrong, nothing can go wrong." So my question is we have the Internet of Things, and we have these computers on wheels, I think it was described yesterday. Are we keeping track with the cybersecurity in terms, we can make these autonomous vehicles do amazing things, but are we also keeping track of the cybersecurity at the same time, and your level of confidence in that?
I'm happy to take it. Yeah, actually, the answer is probably, at this point, we need to be, right? Because as the testing continues throughout the different test grounds, this has proven to be the most important issue. There's a difference between cyber and privacy, but both of them are extraordinarily important. I had one person say to me yesterday, one of the great things about these particular vehicles is that if you take large trucks in particular, you can move a lot. You deal with an ability to move them at a less economic cost, a more efficient way. But at the same time, it could also create a terrorism issue, right? If you don't know that you're dealing with the cyber issues. So one of the things that we're trying to do is pull together from a local, state, and federal perspective what the standards around cyber implications should be. And we could literally be here another 3 hours just going through all the various aspects of what those are. But I can tell you that just last week we're out in California with RSA, which is a large gathering of individuals on this issue. The answer is yes, people are working on it, but we need to be very concerned about this issue now. And one of the things that Governor McAuliffe was doing in putting forth his cyber initiative was bringing this to light. And now I'm glad to know that we're going to be able to work with the governor and others in moving those issues forward.
Great. Just for the time, because I know a bunch of you got to get to the next session at 3, and we do have one special important award. So let me first thank Regina and Jamie. Thank you so much for being here. And they will hopefully hang around here a little bit afterwards if anybody has additional questions to come up and answer them. Turn it over to our great chair, Terry McAuliffe from the great state of Virginia.
Great. Well, I want to first of all thank everybody who's been involved. It's been a great 3 days, very informative, exciting. I first want to thank all the NGA staff, and I want to thank Scott Patterson, our great CEO. This is not easy putting all these schedules together. If we give him a great round of applause, I'd appreciate it. We look forward to seeing everybody in Rhode Island. Tomorrow we will be on Capitol Hill all day with the leadership. Tomorrow morning we'll be at the White House with the president for an early morning meeting, then all day in the afternoon with the congressional leadership to go over the issues on health care, cybersecurity, and others. Appreciate all the great work. 3 to 3:30 today, governors only with the director of the National Security Agency upstairs. We'll move that immediately, but before I adjourn, I do have one special presentation. Come on up, Governor Branstad. So on behalf of the National Governors Association, we'd like to commend Terry E. Branstad, Governor of Iowa, 1985 through 1999, 2001 through 2017, the longest-serving governor in the history of the United States of America, for his outstanding leadership and dedication to the vision that has guided the association since its founding in 1908. So let's give a great round of applause for Governor Terry Branstad. And now I formally adjourn the meeting of the 2017 winter meeting of the National Governors Association.
Congratulations. And with that, it's done.
Thank you so much.
No, look,